Today we are going to be making cork gnomes. Inside your bag, you should have instructions, felt pieces, the beard and the nose and the googly eyes, a cork, a stencil for the hat, and a Meet the Gnome page in addition to the snack, of course. So to get started, I'm going to move everything out of the way. And the first thing that I'm going to start with is decide which of the two colors of felt I'm going to use for the hat and for the clothing of my gnome. For an example, here is one that I made, and I chose to make a red hat with a blue piece of clothing. You can choose whatever combination you like. You will only have enough felt that we've included here to do one or the other, so you can't make them match. But I think for mine this time, since I made a red hat last time, I'm going to flip it. So I will do a purple hat. And so I'm going to take that purple piece of felt that I have in my template, and this one just barely fits, but it's okay because if it's a little bit smaller than the template, it's just fine. It's to give you a sense of that shape. So what I'm going to do then, since it's just slightly small, is pull this just a little bit more so it's shorter. So I'm going to go ahead, if you have yours, you want to try and line it up with the corner as much as possible. I'm going to go ahead and trace that part, the part that's arcing, so that I have a line, and I used black. In purple, it kind of blends in perfectly. Let's see if I can go ahead and cut that. Sometimes it can be tricky to cut felt, but since I had lined it up in the corner, it should really only need to trace that top line. And there is the beginning of the hat. Now, basically the way that we're going to do the hat is to roll it on itself. And you may need to trim just a little to make this work. But you'll be gluing it so that it will fit into itself. And I like to just try and roll it out just to see where I'm going to do the glue line. So that's kind of going to be my hat. I want to make sure that it is symmetrical, so that helps. I think I cut this a little wonky, so I'm going to recut a piece of it. In case yours turned out like mine did, it's helpful to just put the sides together and then you can trim so that it kind of matches a little bit better. So there's my hat. I'm going to get my cork. And so as I roll this on itself to make the hat piece, I want to make sure that it fits on the cork, and so that I can see that it will fit nicely on there, because once I glue the hat together, I'm then going to glue it onto the cork. This can be the trickiest part of this, just because getting it to roll the way you want it to. It's okay if there's a slight opening on the top. It's okay however your hat turns out. This one. And it can be a little bigger too, depending on where you want to go ahead and put it. So I'm gonna go with what I had there. You can use hot glue. I'm gonna use the tacky glue because I find that it works the best on felt, and even sometimes it can be tricky. Hot glue definitely dries pretty quickly and works really well, but what you're gonna do is just a line, and don't wanna use too much because the wetter it gets, the harder it is to glue. I got my line. And I'm going to go ahead and connect those edges so that it fits on itself. And it's going to be a little messy. The glue will dry clear. And I'm also going to use a little bit here for that end. And I find that holding it and pinching it tightly and waiting a little bit is one of the best ways to get it to dry. I think I got a little bit of a mess on the top there, but that's okay. I'm gonna hold that part tightly because I really want that to glue together. So we'll wait just a little bit so that that dries. If you trace yours on a lighter color, it's a good idea to put the tracing lines a little bit more inside so that you don't show them as much, but that's okay either way. That way you can just kind of hide them. So that looks like it's gonna stay perfect. And I'm gonna go ahead and kind of set it aside for a second while I work on the clothing. And so this piece of felt is gonna be a little too big. You kind of want it to be about halfway or a third on your cork. So I'm gonna line up my cork with the piece of felt and figure out. You might use a ruler for this part because you're gonna cut a straight line. something else that I found is that you can fold the felt to show you your line, make sure that's about right, and then just cut along that fold. It's not always perfect, but it's a little easier if you don't have a ruler. There's that. So I won't need that extra. And you can always trim if it's too much. I'm gonna see, roll it around your piece of cork. That looks pretty good to me. I wanna hide that top part a little bit, but you can always put any folds in the back of the gnome so that people can't quite see them. Great, that's gonna look good, I think. So then what I'm gonna do is use that tacky glue again. I wanna put some right along the inside part to glue it to the cork. I'm gonna hold that for a little bit. And then I'm gonna use the rest of this to put it on. Roll it around so that the end gets glued to the rest of the felt. And good idea to just hold it all so that that can dry and get all nice and dry. Sometimes you have to wait a little bit with the gluing. All right, seems like it's gonna stay. That's wonderful. So the other part you'll wanna attach is the hat. So now that my hat is dry, what I like to do for this is kind of put glue along the inside of the hat. Not too much, because then it will just be goopy. But I do that, and then I figure out where exactly this is gonna be the back with the seams. So then I wanna put the seam of the hat back there too. And I'm gonna tilt mine just slightly because I like it to kind of lean back. And then I'll pinch where that glue was to get it stuck to the cork. So far you have the seams in the back, the glue should dry clear, and then you have the rest of the time we'll be putting that nose and the eyes on your gnome. So you might be able to set it down depending on how you glue your hat. You might not be able to. I'm doing this so that you can see a little more clearly. So for the finer details of your gnome, the eyes and the nose and the beard, you have it in this little pouch. You'll have a long strip of faux beard. So you won't need all of that unless you really want to make a nice long beard that would kind of go all the way to the floor there. Your nose, and then the two tiny eyes. All right. And so I like to put the eyes on first, but I like to put the nose on the beard so that it shows up a little better. So I'm gonna pick where my eyes are gonna go. I think right here and right there. Great, I've got my two glues. And I'll hold this so you can see it. And then I'm gonna put the eyes, glue them on. All right, you should be able to hold those a little bit to make sure that they stay. This looks a little silly without any other features, almost like a kid gnome. All right, and then I'm gonna figure out exactly what I want my beard to look like. I'm thinking my other gnomes have had really pointy beards. You could also do a straight down beard, or whatever you want your beard to look like. I tend to think having it go as far down as it can is nice. So I'm gonna try and just make a square one just so we can see what it looks like. So one thing I wanna do to keep some of the fuzz is figure out where I'm gonna cut it at and pull the beard. If you look really closely, you can see the webbing that's underneath the beard. So if I pull that up and then cut that part, but not the hair, then I still get to have all these nice tufts that I can use. And so this is gonna be a nice long beard that will flow even further, which is gonna be pretty fun. And you can kind of comb it with your fingers if you want it to twist a certain way. You'll definitely have some excess, so comb that out if you can. So I'm gonna go ahead and glue this on where I want it. Let's see where I'm gonna, oh my goodness. I'm gonna hold it just like all the other times we've glued. Hold it down, hold it down. And then this is just such a nice long beard. I'm gonna try and curl it a little bit so that when this gnome stands, it kind of falls against the ground. And then the last detail is that little nose. So I put that little glue dot right between the eyes and the beard. A little wooden nose. Put it on there and wait for it to dry. And there you have a gnome. So I've got that gnome, this gnome. I made two that were pretty similar. And then this one, which I didn't even give eyes to because I thought that was kind of fun. So however you make your gnome is wonderful. You have in the kit also a Meet the Gnome sheet so that you can introduce the world to your gnome, giving it a name, an age, some hobbies, where your gnome lives, and any fun random facts you want to include about your gnome.